Here are the best builds for Moze in Borderlands 3. This video features some of the most powerful and unique builds for Moze. So no matter what your playstyle is, there's a build in here for you. They all dominate endgame content, and you can find their save files in the description. And let's crack into it. We open with a Moze build that summons a raging blizzard out of thin air. Immortal Snowshoe Moze. A build unlike anything else in the entire game. It takes advantage of a unique interaction that Moze has incredible synergy for, able to defeat arenas full of enemies and bosses without even firing a weapon. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. But the skills mean nothing if you don't have the right gear. A key piece of that is the Snowshoe, a shield that causes cryonovas to erupt whenever we slide. We won't be sliding, but we can trick it into thinking we do thanks to a spark plug prefix on our artifact. You see the coils from the spark plug deal slide damage and will summon the Snowshoe's novas whenever they zap an enemy. We want a deathless artifact because it increases the capacity of our shield, and each nova's damage is relative to the amount of shields we have. Now normally you would have to wait until your shield recharges to summon another nova, but with Moze's Bloodletter class mod, which rounds off the trifecta of required items, our shield bar gains the effects of the health bar, enabling any regen capabilities to fill up our shield. And because the Frozen Snowshoe grants the effects of the Frozen Heart, returning 30% of Nova damage as health, every Cryo Nova will completely top up our shields, allowing us to repeat this damaging cycle again and again. It's an absolutely crazy interaction that you can't find anywhere else. Icebergs will spawn around you and they'll be so dense that you won't even be able to see. Just use the minimap as an indication of how well you're doing as you watch those red dots disappear. And there are things you can do to make it even stronger. The main thing that you'll want to do is get the anointment, which increases your shields by 75% after you exit Iron Bear. And that effect lasts for 25 seconds, resulting in massively powerful cryonovas that shake the foundations of the Borderlands. Entering and exiting Iron Bear isn't a necessity while mobbing. There's already plenty of damage there, and a lot of that is thanks to Phalanx Doctrine, which grants us 40% bonus shields per stack, and it stacks up to 99 times. When mobbing, running Iron Cub is perfectly fine, and when they're on cooldown, we'll get the bonuses from Big Surplus. When bossing though, you'll definitely want to make use of the Exit Iron Bear anointment. It goes without saying, but this build is much more usable when you've got the Come On and Slam Guardian rank. With that, you'll be able to slam at any height, so make sure you pick it up. The weapon we'll want to be using for this build is the Guardian Angel, which will increase not only the damage of the novas, but the coils by up to 500% the further we are from our enemies, and it caps out at 25 meters. You'll also want yours to have a URAD anointment for that bonus radiation damage, which gives those freezing novas a sickly feeling. And thanks to skills like Fire in the Skag Den, we'll be dealing a nice amount of incendiary damage too. As long as those coils can zap your target, this build does a mountain of damage. That's not all though, this build also couples as an Immortal Moze build thanks to the skills we're spec'd into and the Bloodletter class mod. But you will want to add the Madcap to the mix, ideally with 3 turtle augments to have a shield of monumental proportions. You'll want yours to have the Exit Iron Bear gain 75% increased shields and health for 25 seconds to increase it even further. When Phalanx Doctrine procs, however, we don't get that increased shield straight away. We need to regen it ourselves. That's why we're spec'd into Vampire and are using a Cloning Maddening Tracker, which does some of that work for us. And the Hex is a more farmable alternative. However, rushing offense grants us lifesteal whenever we sprint and shoot at enemies, and that's going to top our shields up the fastest. When that's all pieced together, Moze will turn into a tank that'll make Iron Bear jealous. You'll be able to use your typical splash damage weapons with the URAD anointment that is active all the time to dish out damage without fear of ever going down. Now onto a Moze build that makes use of the most broken action skill in the game. That is of course Iron Bear, so I present to you Ballistic Bear, a build inspired by Lazy Data's Banjo Bear but with some adjustments made so we can utilize all of the weapons with almost all of their augments. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now, and there's a combination of weapon types there too for you to play around with. Don't limit yourself to just that though, try them all. Just remember that we'll always be dual wielding thanks to the bonuses from Specialist Bear. We do miss out on the Salamander's Molten Roar and the Bear Fist's Shock Hammer, but there's definitely a big enough arsenal here to keep you busy. Speaking of arsenal on the Moze front, because what we'll be doing is being Iron Bear's cold, lonely shell 24/7, we want to be holding weapons that support Iron Bear, and the best one for that is the Dark Army, which is one of few guns that have an effect that actually works while inside. Its drones will accompany our mechanized monster wherever we go, and we'll get to why they're helpful and why you want them in fire in a little bit. I have one to cover each of Iron Bear's weapon anointments, and you'll want the same. It doesn't need to be a Dark Army, anything with the right anointment is more than enough, but if you're looking for the best, then that's it. For class mods, there's 3 key ones that we'll swap around with depending on the situation. Eternal Flame is probably the one you'll find yourself using most often, because it provides the greatest Iron Bear uptime, and Iron Bear already has plenty of damage. We do this by applying flame dots to enemies, through our grenade which we can summon thanks to this anointment, Dark Army crits from the drones that follow us around, Cloud of Lead, or general crits through experimental munitions, etc. Depending on what weapons you're running on Iron Bear, it's how easily you'll proc this. The main difficulty comes from weapons like the railgun if it's not sabot rounds, which don't deal splash damage, and therefore no fire in the skag den. Other weapons have less of a problem. Regardless if Iron Bear does expire, you won't be out of it for long. All you need to do is throw grenades, reload and start firing your Dark Army, and you'll get enough fire dots to reset it. This is why we also have an action skill and fire element anointment on our plus ultra shield to apply that extra bit of incendiary damage when we do run out of Iron Bear. The shield itself also doubles the health of Iron Bear, an added bonus. Another one of the class mods we have in here is the Flare, which increases Iron Bear's damage up to 100% based on the remaining fuel. This class mod I'd use if you want that extra bit of damage, but seriously you don't need it, making Eternal Flame a great all-time choice. There's also a heat exchanger in here which is great when coupled with the minigun, and the augment I prefer to use with the minigun is Exploding Bullets. On these class mods you'll notice that there is 2 versions. That's because there's very few passives that actually affect Iron Bear, and even less that I'd recommend which work for each and every Iron Bear weapon. And those are obviously action skill damage, but also max health, which scales with Iron Bear. Action skill cooldown rate works too, but we don't need that thanks to the Eternal Flame. If your weapon deals splash damage, then you'll want to equip the class mod that boosts splash damage and splash damage radius, and the artifact changes depending on this too. Weapons like the capacitive armature railguns don't deal splash damage, and because very few legendary artifact effects work in Iron Bear, the Banjo becomes the best artifact to use for weapons that don't deal splash damage. The Banjo has a 20% chance to chain lightning to a nearby enemy, dealing a quarter of the damage that summoned it as shock damage. And when your weapons hit this hard, those chains will deal a lot of damage. They can also crit and therefore apply fire dots, which makes it even better. On the other hand, if your weapon does deal splash damage, then you'll want to have an artifact equipped with an AoE roll in either slot 2 or 3. Any artifact, remember the legendary effects don't matter. Whatever weaponry you decide to use, even if you're set up incorrectly, will absolutely dominate the battlefield. Iron Bear is simply a weapon of mass destruction, there's no 2 ways about it. It has so much health and deals so much damage that there is literally nothing you won't be able to defeat in Borderlands 3. The gear is also incredibly easy to get. The ones doing the heavy lifting are the Eternal Flame class mod and the anointment on your weapon. Iron Bear will do the rest of the heavy lifting. Some weapons I recommend you try out are the capacitive armature railguns for mobbing. Their shots will pierce enemies, one-shotting them with ease, and the Banjo couples well with that. You want to switch up to Sabo rounds for raid bosses, which will comfortably deal with them, and any splash damage rolls will make them even more powerful. Firing off nukes on the battlefield using the Vanquish's rocket pods with the Hammer Down Protocol Augment is some of the most fun you can have in Borderlands 3, and you can never go wrong with a minigun with exploding bullets, and the Heat Exchanger class mod pairs the best with them. Moving on to Mitosis Moze, a build designed to maximize the damage of single projectile weapons, while also allowing you to use weapons that don't even deal splash damage, granting you an incredibly high amount of weapons to play around with. This build was featured in the Best Builds in 2024 video, and here's the skill tree on screen now, but this time with augments. Yes, I kind of forgot about those. So where the term mitosis is the act of a cell splitting into two, this build focuses on splitting a projectile into two, and we do that through the Infernal Wish. And because it's an extra projectile, it's not just double damage, it's double everything. So extra short fuse procs, extra fire in the skag den, you name it, this shield just gives us more of it. Now the problem with this shield is its ability to burn us if we fire too much. If you're using heavy weapons, that's not going to happen too often, but I want you to be able to use whatever you want, so that's going to be a problem. But to mitigate that, this kill tree focuses on increasing our shields, and therefore hopefully allow us to survive the burn a bit longer. If you're worried about going down, there is a Bloodletter class mod that can help prevent that, but the mod I went for is the Minesweeper. The reason we like the Minesweeper isn't just because of the high damage it grants us, but because it provides an avenue for us to deal splash damage when we're not even using splash damage weapons. That's because on crit, a micro grenade spawns at the impact point, providing us with that splash damage. They deal grenade damage, scale off splash damage, and get the element of the gun that summoned them. That allows us to use weapons like the crit, which is just absolutely broken in its own right, and apply Moze's many splash damage bonuses. It's not just Minesweeper doing the work though, there are a few key skills that are critical to piecing this build together. One of those is Fire in the Skag Den, which grants all of our area damage bonus fire damage, and it gets massive levels of mayhem scaling. Big Surplus does a similar thing, but only when Iron Cub is on cooldown, and that's why we give them the grenade launcher so they can essentially blow themselves up. To maximize its bonuses, we also want to disable the topped off Guardian rank. Redistribution and Means of Destruction combine perfectly to provide heaps of ammo regeneration, especially when Redistribution is rolled on the Minesweeper. Pull the Holy Pin allows the micro grenades to crit and summon more micro grenades to produce a micro grenade chain of unrelenting force. And there's also Thin Red Line. Thin Red Line caps us below 50% health at 40%, allowing us to proc the U-Rat Anointment, which, if you're not aware, applies 100% bonus radiation damage while you're below 50% health. That's us all the time. And if we're talking about an anointment that works the best in all situations, this is it. For artifacts, I went with the Snowdrift Victory Rush. This one gains bonuses to area of effect damage, mag size, and grenade damage, which are all great rolls. The main ones you should be looking out for are area of effect damage and mag size. It's important to note that area of effect damage when in slot 2 or 3 also provides boost to area radius. However, that can be a bad thing, as when we're spec'd into Torque Cross Promotion and are dropping micro grenades everywhere and they can double in size, don't be surprised if they down you, because they will. That's why I've provided an artifact with AoE in slot 1 which doesn't boost the radius, or you could even take points out of Torque Cross Promotion and put them somewhere else. Obviously for grenade mods I went with the Cloning Maddening Tracker purely because of the amount of procs we get from it, and the on grenade throw anointment is the best. So when you're looking to deal damage with this build for particularly tanky bosses, I prefer the Backburner. This thing is just monumental. The fire rate coupled with our ability to regen ammo allows us to fire it way longer than normal before we reload, and it deals enough damage to just melt Hemovorus in really the blink of an eye. The Boogeyman is a great choice sniper rifle that can reap the full benefits of the Infernal Wish, or the Plague Bearer if you're looking to absolutely decimate any mobbing arena. Obviously the Plasma Coil is well capable of dropping bosses on its own, and it's gonna flatten enemies all around the park too. The Free Radical much the same. This build just provides so many options. I don't want you to just pick the ones that I've mentioned or the ones included in the save file. There's just a massive amount of weapons that this build makes shine. Moze makes shine, it's just insane. Up next, a build that proves that if you shoot your shot enough, damage won't reject you. That build is of course AmMoze, focusing on firing as much as you can, as fast as you can, for as long as you can. The definition of reloading is lost with this one. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. And you've noticed we've gone all the way down in green tree to grab all those ammo based skills, and we've picked up Grizzle to get Iron Cub back after it blows itself up. Why do we need improved cooldown? Well, because we'll be using an action skill start Revolter for that massive increase in shock damage and fire rate whenever our action skill ends. Summoning Iron Cub on the battlefield will see Moze go Super Saiyan, absolutely demolishing whatever's in front of her, still without a thought of reloading. Because we don't want to reload in this build, the Blast Master is a great class mod of choice. It grants us up to 100% bonus splash damage after 50 seconds of not reloading, and if you're using this build right, you'll never lose that bonus. There's also a green monster in here for a select set of weapons. You see, the green monster is a Blast Master, but provides bonus corrosive damage the longer our trigger's held down, and it resets when you reload, swap weapons, or fire again. The bonus corrosive damage caps at 100% and is reached after 13 and a bit seconds, and it has the same bonus splash damage effect as the Blast Master. Not all weapons are able to reap the full benefits of the green monster however, but there are a few I'd recommend. One of them is the Boogeyman, which has a 60% chance not to consume ammo. This thing absolutely obliterates and is made for this build. I'd also recommend the Flipper, which consumes ammo normally, but because its max projectile count of 9 is so high, you can easily return that ammo back. These guns are both great because they deal splash damage and synergize with many of Moze's skills. One weapon which doesn't deal splash damage but still works with the green monster is the Butcher, so you can always give that a go if you'd like. Generally in this build though, I like to use the Blast Master because I find holding down the trigger as I'm transitioning through the map a bit of a pain and quite slow. Gets me out of the groove. But in tight knit areas, the green monster with these guns is amazing. Roles you should be looking out for on your class mod are splash damage, weapon max size, weapon type damage, manufacturer crit, or even action skill cooldown rate. You want 1 in redistribution for the Blast Master, and ideally 5 scorching RPMs for the green monster. The artifact I went for is a Snowdrift Victory Rush, just for that extra move speed. But a gold rolled Company Man will be better, although very difficult to farm for. The main roles on your artifacts you should be looking for are mag size and AoE in slot 2 or 3. As for the grenade mod, there's no surprises here. I went for the CMT, just for those extra hits, which thanks to Pull the Holy Pin allow it to proc redistribution and means of destruction for that ammo regen, Vampire for the health, and it helps stack our consecutive hits anointment. And the Hex is a great alternative. Anointments for our weapons, you should be looking for consecutive hits or next to mags. Next to mags is great because we'll never be reloading and therefore get that bonus elemental damage all the time. However, when bossing, it can be difficult to proc it, so you will find consecutive hits to suit all situations better. Speaking of bossing, because we're specced into Some for the Road, which grants us 5 seconds of infinite ammo after exiting Iron Bear, we can abuse the insane stacking abilities of the Red Line to defeat anything we want. As we exit Iron Bear, we'll be granted that 50% fire rate increase from the Revolter, which allows us to stack Gyrojets at an incredible pace. The Red Line fires 4 Gyrojets per shot, with each one increasing the damage of the subsequent explosion by 5%. We can stack an unbelievable amount before the first one detonates after 10 seconds. It is crazy strong and is there when you need it. Otherwise, this build excels at allowing you to use just about any splash damage weapon to dominate the Borderlands, and even the Butcher as we mentioned before. The Lucky 7 is also fantastic on this build once rolled correctly, and you'll want 7 pellets and explosive rounds as a minimum. That gun on Moze is absolutely insane, and thanks to points in the Iron Bank and Forge, you'll be able to maintain its strength much easier.